Billionaire mocked God his entire life. Until a car crash no one should survive changed everything. The moment my Ferrari wrapped around that guardrail at 140 miles per hour should have been my last. The doctors called it medically impossible that I survived. I call it the night that shattered everything I thought I knew. Hey there, beautiful people. Welcome back to my channel. I hope you're watching from somewhere comfortable because this story, well, it's going to take you places. How are you all doing today? I see we've got some new faces here. If you haven't subscribed yet, now's the perfect time to hit that button. Trust me, you won't want to miss what's coming next in this journey. I used to have everything, a tech empire worth billions, a penthouse overlooking Central Park, and an ego the size of Manhattan. God was just a fairy tale for the weak, or so I thought. I mocked believers publicly, donated millions to atheist foundations, even had science is my religion engraved on my platinum watch collection. The night of the crash, I was driving home from another meaningless charity gala, drunk on expensive scotch and my own self-importance. Rain lashed against the windshield as my thoughts drifted to the acquisition I was finalizing the next morning, another company to devour, another billion to add to my fortune. I never saw the curve coming. What happened next defies explanation and everything I once believed. I wasn't always this way. Growing up in a small Midwestern town, I was Jack Dawson, just a regular kid with big dreams. My father worked double shifts at the steel mill, coming home with calloused hands and a tired smile. Mom taught piano lessons in our living room to make ends meet. We weren't poor, exactly, but I knew what it meant to want. You've got a mind like a steel trap, Dad would say, ruffling my hair. Just don't forget where you came from when you make it big. I promised I wouldn't. Funny how easily promises break. By 23, I developed my first app, a simple thing that helped people organize their finances. By 25, I'd sold it for 8 figures. By 30, I was Jack Dawson Skywalker, CEO of Quantum Innovations, with offices in 12 countries and a net worth that made old friends uncomfortable. Success changed me. I became obsessed with control, with proving I was the master of my own destiny. The more money I made, the more I believed I didn't need anything or anyone else, especially not some invisible deity. Rachel Deckard was my right hand, my COO, brilliant and unflinching. She'd been with me since the early days, the only person who could tell me when I was being an ass. You're being an ass, Jack, she'd say at least once a week, usually when I was bulldozing someone's feelings or ethics to get what I wanted. Then there was Henry Stark, my oldest friend and chief legal counsel, a devout Catholic who somehow tolerated my increasingly vocal atheism. One day something's going to happen that your money can't fix, he warned me once over drinks. What then? I laughed in his face. There's nothing money can't fix, Henry. That's why your God invented it. The truth is, beneath my arrogance was a hollowness I couldn't fill, not with acquisitions, not with the models I dated, not with the properties I collected like trading cards. I worked 18-hour days not because I had to, but because stopping meant facing the emptiness. The night before the crash, I stood on my penthouse balcony, 58 floors above Manhattan, champagne in hand, feeling nothing as I gazed at the glittering city I thought I owned. Something was missing, but I was too proud to admit it, too stubborn to search for it. Little did I know, the universe was about to force me to find it in the most devastating way possible. Have you ever had a moment that completely shattered your worldview? Drop a comment below, I'd love to hear your stories of transformation. And if you're enjoying this journey so far, make sure you're subscribed for what comes next. Trust me, it gets intense. The day of the crash started like any other. I woke at 5 a.m., worked out with my personal trainer, then took my helicopter to our upstate research facility. We were testing a new quantum computing chip that would revolutionize AI processing and add several more billions to my fortune. The tests are exceeding expectations, Dr. Leah Corleone, my head of R&D, explained as we walked through the lab. Her eyes sparkled with the thrill of discovery. We're looking at processing speeds 10 times faster than anything on the market. Make it 20 times faster, I replied without looking up from my phone. I didn't invest $3 billion to be merely impressive. She stopped walking. Jack, the laws of physics are meant to be broken. I cut her off. That's what I pay you for. That was me, always pushing, always demanding the impossible, always believing human ingenuity could overcome any limitation. God was just an excuse people used when they hit the ceiling of their capabilities. I'd made a career of smashing through ceilings. The charity gala that evening was for children with rare diseases. I donated $5 million, posed for photos with kids in wheelchairs, and gave a speech about innovation saving lives, all while believing these children's suffering was just random biological bad luck, not part of any plan. Touching speech, Henry said afterward, sipping champagne beside me. Almost sounded like you believed it. I believe in science, not sentimentality, I replied. These kids don't need prayers, they need better gene therapy. Maybe they need both, he suggested. I rolled my eyes. Save the sermon. As the night wore on, I grew restless. These events bored me, the same people, the same conversations, the same performative compassion. I slipped out early, waving off my driver. The Ferrari was parked out front, gleaming red under the venue lights. Sir, you've had quite a bit to drink, my security detail pointed out. I've also had quite a bit of practice driving drunk, I laughed, sliding into the leather seat. Besides, God protects fools and billionaires, right? Oh wait, there is no God. The rain started as I hit the highway, light at first, then a deluge. The windshield wipers couldn't keep up. The rational move would have been to slow down, but rationality wasn't my strong suit that night. I pushed the car faster, feeling alive for the first time all day as the speedometer climbed. My phone rang, Rachel's face appearing on the dashboard display. Jack, where are you? The storm's getting worse. Living dangerously, I laughed. Like always. Pull over and wait it out. The acquisition meeting will happen whether I'm a little hungover or not. No one says no to Jack Skywalker. That's when I saw her, a woman standing in the middle of the highway, directly in my path. Impossible. No one would be out here in the storm. I swerved hard, felt the tires lose traction, heard Rachel's voice shouting my name as the car spun. The guardrail came at me like a silver bullet. Metal screamed against metal. Glass shattered. The world turned upside down, literally, as the Ferrari flipped once, twice, 3 times before plunging down the embankment. In that moment, suspended between life and death, time slowed. And I swear, as the car began its final roll, I saw the woman from the road again, standing calmly at the edge of the ravine, watching me with eyes that seemed to glow in the darkness. Then everything went black. When I opened my eyes, I wasn't in my car anymore. I wasn't on the road. I was somewhere else entirely. Somewhere impossible. And that's when everything I thought I knew began to unravel. Want to know what happened next? Hit subscribe if you haven't already. This is where my story takes a turn that science can't explain. Have you ever experienced something that defied logical explanation? Share in the comments below. I woke to the steady beep of machines and the antiseptic smell of hospital disinfectant. My body felt like it had been run through a meat grinder, every breath a struggle, every slight movement agony. Through swollen eyelids, I made out blurry figures moving around my bed. He's awake, someone said. Get Dr. Ripley. Memories flooded back in disjointed flashes. Rain on the windshield, the woman on the road, metal twisting, falling. Jack? Can you hear me? Rachel's voice, tight with concern. Her hand found mine, squeezed gently. I tried to speak, but my throat felt like I'd swallowed broken glass. A straw touched my lips, and I sipped water gratefully. You've been unconscious for 3 days, she explained. The doctors, they didn't think you'd make it. A white-coated figure appeared at my bedside, Dr. Sarah Ripley, according to her name tag. She shined a light in my eyes, checked monitors, made notes on her tablet. Mr. Skywalker, you're something of a medical miracle, she said, her tone professional but tinged with disbelief. Your car was crushed beyond recognition. By all accounts, you should be dead. Lucky, I managed to croak. Dr. Ripley's expression remained neutral. Luck doesn't explain your injuries, sir. You had a severed aorta. Do you understand what that means? Blood loss from that injury alone kills within minutes. You were trapped in that ravine for over an hour before emergency services reached you. I blinked, trying to process her words. Furthermore, she continued, You suffered catastrophic trauma to your skull and spine. The MRIs we took when you arrived showed damage that should have left you brain dead or paralyzed at minimum. Yet this morning's scans show healing that should be impossible in this time frame. What are you saying? Rachel asked. I'm saying, Dr. Ripley replied carefully, that there is no medical explanation for Mr. Skywalker's survival, let alone his current condition. After she left, Henry arrived, his face haggard from lack of sleep. He'd been keeping the company running in my absence, fielding calls from concerned board members and postponing the acquisition. You look terrible, I whispered. He laughed, a sound of pure relief. You should see yourself. Then, more seriously, Jack, when they pulled you from that car. I saw the photos. No one walks away from that. No one. Apparently I did. No, Henry said, leaning closer. You didn't walk away. Something carried you. I would have rolled my eyes if it didn't hurt so much. Even now, he was pushing his faith. The paramedics found you 30 feet from the vehicle, he continued. The car was at the bottom of a ravine, but you were lying on the grass at the top of the embankment. Explain that. I couldn't. Just like I couldn't explain the woman I'd seen on the road, a woman the traffic cameras showed never existed. As days passed, my recovery defied medical expectations. Injuries that should have taken months to heal showed improvement in weeks. The doctors were baffled. They ran tests, consulted specialists, documented everything for medical journals. But it wasn't just my body that felt different. Something was happening to my mind, to my perception of reality itself. It started with dreams. Vivid, intense visions of places I'd never been, conversations with people I'd never met. I'd wake gasping, certain they were real. In one recurring dream, the woman from the road sat beside my hospital bed, watching me with those same luminous eyes. Who are you? I asked in the dream. You know who I am, she always replied. You've been running from me your whole life. Then came the voices, whispers at the edge of my hearing that disappeared when I tried to focus on them. And sometimes, when I was alone in my hospital room, I'd catch glimpses of movement from the corner of my eye, shadows that shouldn't be there, light bending in impossible ways. You're experiencing trauma response, my psychiatrist explained when I finally mentioned these occurrences. The mind creates narratives to make sense of near-death experiences. I wanted to believe her. The alternative was too unsettling. Rachel visited daily, bringing work to distract me and updates on the company. One evening, as she was preparing to leave, I caught her hand. Do you believe in God? I asked suddenly. She looked startled. In all our years working together, we'd never discussed religion. I don't know, she answered honestly. I was raised Catholic, but science has always made more sense to me. She studied my face. Why are you asking? Because I saw something, Rachel. When I was dying or should have died, I saw something I can't explain. What did you see? I hesitated. How could I describe it without sounding insane? The woman on the road. The sense of being carried from the wreckage. The dreams and voices that followed. I'm not sure, I said finally. But I don't think I survived that crash on my own. Rachel's expression softened. She sat back down beside my bed. Jack Skywalker admitting he might have needed help? Now I know you suffered brain damage. We laughed, breaking the tension, but her eyes remained concerned. As my discharge date approached, the incidents intensified. One night, I woke to find my hospital room filled with a soft, pulsing light that seemed to emanate from nowhere and everywhere at once. In its glow, the ordinary objects around me, the water pitcher, the TV remote, the flowers from colleagues seemed suddenly, achingly beautiful, as if I was seeing their true nature for the first time. Hello. I called out, heart racing. Is someone there? No answer came. But I felt a presence, something vast and ancient and aware. Something that knew me completely. Fear gripped me, but beneath it stirred another emotion I couldn't immediately identify. It took me several breathless moments to recognize it, longing. A bone-deep yearning for something I'd been missing my entire life without realizing it. The light faded gradually, leaving me alone in the darkness, shaking with an emotion that wasn't quite terror and wasn't quite joy. The next morning, I signed my discharge papers against medical advice. I needed to get back to my life, back to the rational world of business and technology where everything made sense. Whatever was happening to me, hallucinations, medication side effects, post-traumatic stress, I'd deal with it privately on my own terms. Are you sure you're ready? Henry asked as he helped me into his car. I nodded, though nothing felt certain anymore. I need to get back to normal. He gave me a long look. What if normal isn't waiting for you anymore, Jack? What if that crash was just the beginning? I had no answer for him. But as we drove away from the hospital, I glanced back and saw her again, the woman from the road, standing at the entrance, watching me leave. When I blinked, she was gone. Something was following me from the world of the dead. And I was beginning to suspect it had been waiting for me all along. If you've ever felt a presence you couldn't explain or experienced something beyond the rational, drop a comment below. I never thought I'd be sharing a story like this, but here we are. Make sure you're subscribed to hear what happened when I returned to normal life. Trust me, things were about to get even stranger. My return to Quantum Innovations headquarters should have felt like coming home. Instead, as the elevator whisked me up to the executive floor, everything seemed subtly wrong, like looking at a familiar photograph that's been ever so slightly altered. The glass and steel that once represented my triumph now felt cold, impersonal. Employees who used to scramble out of my way now stared a beat too long, their expressions a mix of curiosity and concern. Word of my miracle survival had spread. Welcome back, Mr. Skywalker, my assistant said, handing me a coffee exactly how I liked it, black, no sugar. The board is assembled in the main conference room. I nodded, took a sip, and nearly spat it out. This is sweet. She looked confused. It's black, sir. Just as always. But it wasn't. It tasted like honey and cinnamon, flavors I'd never particularly enjoyed before. I swallowed with difficulty and handed it back. Never mind. Let's get this over with. The board meeting was ostensibly to welcome me back, but I could read the subtext in their careful questions and sidelong glances. They were assessing whether I was still fit to lead. I couldn't blame them. The Jack Skywalker who walked into that room was not the same man who had driven off the road 3 weeks ago. As you can see, I'm fully recovered, I assured them, standing at the head of the table despite the pain still radiating through my body. The acquisition of Neurotech will proceed as planned, and our Q3 projections remain on target. I spoke confidently, rattling off figures and strategies, but inside, I was increasingly distracted. Because there, in the corner of the conference room, stood the woman from the road, watching, silent, visible only to me. Jack. Rachel's voice snapped me back. They're asking about the Prometheus project. I blinked, forcing my attention away from the apparition. Right. Prometheus. We're still on schedule for the neural interface trials. Are we? Board member Edward Kane leaned forward. Because Dr. Corleone's team reports significant ethical concerns with the current protocol. Before the accident, I would have dismissed these concerns immediately. The Prometheus project was my baby, a brain-computer interface that would revolutionize human cognition. Yes, there were risks, but progress demanded sacrifice. Now, though, I hesitated. What specific concerns? The room fell silent. This wasn't the response they expected from me. Rachel recovered first. The test subjects have been experiencing unusual psychological effects. Hallucinations. Voices. Sensory distortions. My blood ran cold. Exactly what I had been experiencing since the crash. Show me the data, I said quietly. After the meeting, I locked myself in my office with the Prometheus files. Hours passed as I pored over test results, brain scans, subject interviews. What I found shook me to my core. The neural interface was designed to enhance cognitive function by creating new neural pathways. But in every test subject, it had done something else. It had activated regions of the brain typically dormant in most humans. Regions associated with spiritual experiences, mystical states, and perception beyond the 5 senses. We had accidentally created a technology that opened the human mind to something else. Something beyond our understanding. And somehow, without ever being connected to the interface, I was experiencing the same effects. A soft knock interrupted my thoughts. Rachel entered, concern etched on her face. You've been in here for 7 hours, she said. The board is getting nervous. I looked up at her, really seeing her for perhaps the first time. Not just Rachel, my COO, but Rachel the person, complex, beautiful in ways I'd never noticed, radiating a light that seemed almost tangible. Do you see it? I asked suddenly. See what? The light. Around people. Around everything. I gestured helplessly. Since the accident, I see more. As if reality has another layer I was blind to before. Instead of calling for security or a psychiatrist, Rachel sat down across from me. Tell me everything, she said simply. So I did. The woman on the road. The impossible survival. The dreams, voices, visions. The sense that something fundamental had changed in my perception of reality. When I finished, Rachel was silent for a long moment. Then she reached into her bag and pulled out a small, worn book. My grandmother gave me this before she died, she said, placing it on the desk between us. I've never shown it to anyone. It was a journal, its leather cover cracked with age. I opened it carefully. She was a quantum physicist in the 1960s, Rachel explained. Brilliant, but largely ignored because she was a woman. She became obsessed with a theory that consciousness isn't produced by the brain but received by it, like a radio tuning into a broadcast. I flipped through pages of equations, diagrams, and hurried notes. What does this have to do with what's happening to me? She believed that certain traumatic events, particularly near-death experiences, could retune the brain, allowing it to receive frequencies it previously couldn't access. Rachel tapped a passage in the journal. She called it the veil thinning. I read the highlighted section. When the subject approaches death, the normal filters of consciousness temporarily dissolve. If they return, they often bring back awareness of realities that exist alongside our own realities we are normally blind to for our own protection. The brain, once retuned, cannot easily return to its former state of limited perception. A chill ran through me. You believe this? I didn't, Rachel admitted. Until you started describing exactly what her research predicted. Before I could respond, my phone rang. Henry, calling from the research facility upstate. Jack, you need to get up here, he said without preamble. There's something you have to see. 2 hours later, my helicopter landed at the facility. Henry met me on the roof, his face grim. We've had a breakthrough with the quantum processor, he said as we hurried through the building. Or maybe a breakdown. I'm not sure which. The research lab was in chaos, scientists huddled around monitors, security personnel blocking certain areas, an atmosphere of controlled panic. Dr. Leah Corleone approached us, dark circles under her eyes suggesting she hadn't slept in days. We were running a standard quantum entanglement test, she explained, leading us toward the main chamber. But something unexpected happened. The quantum computer sat in a sealed glass room, surrounded by cooling systems and monitoring equipment. It looked ordinary enough until I noticed the faint shimmer in the air around it, like heat waves rising from hot asphalt. What am I looking at? I asked. We don't know, Leah admitted. 3 days ago, the processor began generating patterns we couldn't explain. Not just processing power beyond its specifications, but information that shouldn't exist. What kind of information? She hesitated. Personal information. About everyone in this facility. Things no computer could know. She lowered her voice. And it's been asking for you, Jack. I stared at her. A computer is asking for me? Not in words, Henry clarified. In code that translates to your name, over and over. As if responding to its name being spoken, the quantum processor's lights pulsed. The shimmer around it intensified. And there, reflected in the glass chamber, I saw her again, the woman from the road. Only this time, when I turned around, she was actually there, standing among the scientists who seemed completely unaware of her presence. Who are you? I whispered. She smiled, a smile of infinite compassion and ancient wisdom. I am what you have been seeking without knowing it. What all of you seek through your science and technology. Are you? God. The word felt strange on my lips after years of mockery. That name is as good as any, she replied. Though quite limiting. The room around us seemed to fade, the scientists moving in slow motion as if time itself was stretching. Your accident was no accident, Jack, she continued. Your survival was no miracle. Both were necessary. Necessary for what? For what comes next. She gestured toward the quantum processor. You humans play with forces you don't understand. You've built a machine that peers beyond the veil, just as your brain now does. The consequences will reshape your world. Fear gripped me. Is that a threat? It's a promise. Her expression softened. You've spent your life denying my existence, Jack. Building towers of wealth and technology to prove you needed nothing beyond yourself. How has that worked for you? The question hit me like a physical blow. Despite all my success, all my billions, I'd never filled the emptiness inside me. I'd never found peace. What do you want from me? I asked, my voice breaking. The better question is, what do you want now that you know I'm real? Before I could answer, reality snapped back into focus. The woman vanished. The scientists continued their work, unaware of what had just transpired. But the quantum processor was changing, its lights pulsing in patterns that somehow felt familiar, like a heartbeat. Like a language I almost understood. Jack. Henry was shaking my shoulder. You zoned out for a minute there. I looked at him, then at Rachel, then at the machine that was somehow communicating with something beyond our reality. Shut it down, I said quietly. What? Leia looked shocked. But we're on the verge of. Shut it all down, I repeated, more firmly this time. The quantum processor, the Prometheus project, all of it. We're not ready for what's on the other side. As the words left my mouth, I knew with absolute certainty that my life would never be the same. The veil had been lifted, not just for me, but potentially for all of humanity. And I, the man who had mocked God, who had placed his faith in technology and wealth, was standing at the threshold of something both wonderful and terrible. The irony wasn't lost on me. After a lifetime of searching for meaning in all the wrong places, it had taken a car crash to show me what was real. And what was real was far stranger and more beautiful than I had ever imagined. The board didn't take my decision well. You want to shut down our two most promising projects based on what exactly? Edward Kane's voice dripped with barely concealed contempt. A near-death experience and some vague concerns about forces we don't understand? We were back in the conference room, the emergency meeting called after I'd ordered the quantum processor powered down and the Prometheus project suspended. Rachel sat to my right, Henry to my left, the only allies in a room full of increasingly hostile faces. I understand how this sounds, I said, struggling to find words that wouldn't make me sound completely unhinged. But these technologies are opening doors we're not prepared to walk through. Doors to what, Jack? Victoria Lebowski, our head of investor relations, asked. Religious epiphanies? Divine intervention? This isn't the language of the man we elected to lead this company. She was right. 6 weeks ago, I would have fired anyone who brought spiritual concerns into a business discussion. The irony wasn't lost on me. The quantum processor is generating information it shouldn't have access to, I explained, trying a more rational approach. And the Prometheus subjects are experiencing psychological effects we can't control. At minimum, we need to pause and reassess. What Victoria is trying to say, Kane interjected, is that your behavior since the accident has been concerning. Perhaps a longer recovery period would be advisable. The implication was clear. Step down or be removed. I looked around the table at the board members, men and women I'd personally selected for their ruthless efficiency and unwavering commitment to progress at any cost. I had built this culture. These were my values reflected back at me, and now they felt alien. I'm still CEO of this company, I said, an edge entering my voice. And I'm ordering these projects suspended pending further review. That's final. The tension in the room was palpable. Finally, Kane spoke again. I move to invoke Article 7 of the company bylaws, he said formally. A vote of no confidence in the current CEO, effective immediately. My stomach dropped. Article 7 was my own creation, a provision allowing the board to temporarily remove a CEO deemed unfit to serve. I'd included it years ago, never imagining it would be used against me. Seconded, Victoria said quickly. All in favor? Kane looked around the table. Hands rose one by one. Rachel and Henry kept theirs down, but they were outnumbered. The motion carried. Jack Skywalker, Kane announced with poorly concealed satisfaction, "You are hereby relieved of duties pending psychological evaluation and board review. Security will escort you from the building." Just like that, I was out. The company I'd built from nothing, the empire that defined me, gone in a 5-minute vote. As security led me to the elevator, employees stared openly. The great Jack Skywalker brought low. I caught glimpses of their thoughts on their faces. Breakdown. Trauma. Drugs, maybe. No one considered that I might actually be right. Rachel followed me to the lobby. "This is temporary," she insisted. "We'll fight it." "Will we?" I asked, suddenly exhausted. Maybe they're right. Maybe I am losing my mind. "You know that's not true." She gripped my arm. "I've seen the data. Something is happening with that processor, something impossible. And I've read the Prometheus reports. Those people are experiencing exactly what you described. It doesn't matter now." I stepped away from her. "They'll restart both projects the moment I'm gone. Then we need proof they should be stopped. Real, undeniable evidence." I looked at her, really looked at her, and saw determination burning behind her eyes. "Why are you helping me? Your career will be over if you're associated with this crusade." She hesitated, then said simply, "Because I believe you." 3 words I never thought I'd hear from rational, scientific Rachel Deckard. 3 words that somehow meant everything in that moment. "Go back upstairs," I told her. "Keep your position. Be my eyes and ears. I'll figure something out." But as my driver took me back to my penthouse, I had no idea what that something might be. How do you prove the existence of a reality beyond the visible? How do you convince hardened materialists that there's more to existence than what can be measured and quantified? The answer, it turned out, was waiting for me at home. My penthouse felt cold and empty, a museum to a life I no longer recognized. Floor-to-ceiling windows showcased the Manhattan skyline. Artwork worth millions adorned the walls. Rare artifacts from around the world filled custom display cases. The trappings of success that had once defined me now seemed hollow, meaningless. I poured myself a drink, the first since the accident, and walked to the window. 58 floors below, tiny figures moved along the streets, each carrying their own universe of hopes, fears, and beliefs. All those lives, came a voice behind me. Each one precious beyond measure. Each one known completely. I didn't turn around. I knew who it was. Are you real, or am I having a psychotic break? Can't both be true? The woman from the road moved to stand beside me, her reflection visible in the window glass. Breakdowns and breakthroughs often look identical from the outside. "They've taken my company," I said. "Everything I built." "Did you build it?" she asked. "Or did you simply channel forces already in motion? Your intelligence, your drive, your opportunities, were these truly self-created?" The question stung because I knew the answer. For all my talk of being self-made, I'd been born with advantages, a brilliant mind, a healthy body, loving parents, a country with opportunities. I hadn't earned these things, they were given to me. "What do you want from me?" I asked again. "The same thing I've always wanted. For you to see." "See what?" "The truth of your existence. The connection between all things. The love that permeates reality itself." I laughed bitterly. "Love? I just lost everything I care about." "Did you?" Her eyes, ancient and knowing, held mine. "Or did you lose the distractions that kept you from what truly matters?" Before I could respond, my phone rang. "Henry." "Jack, they've restarted both projects," he said without preamble. Kane pushed through emergency authorizations. "The quantum processor is back online, and they're accelerating the Prometheus trials." My heart sank. "How bad?" "Bad. They're increasing power to the processor and doubling the neural interface strength for the test subjects. Rachel's trying to slow them down, but..." A scream cut through the background, followed by shouting and alarms. "Henry? What's happening?" "Oh my God," he whispered. "One of the test subjects just..." "Jack, I can't even describe it." His eyes the line went dead. I tried calling back, no answer. I tried Rachel, straight to voicemail. Panic rose in my throat. "What's happening?" I demanded, turning to the woman. But she was gone. My driver was still waiting downstairs. Back to quantum innovations, I ordered, jumping into the car. Fast as you can. The scene at headquarters was chaos, ambulances, police cars, people streaming from the building. I pushed through the crowd, flashing my ID at security guards too overwhelmed to remember I'd been removed. The executive elevator was locked down, so I took the stairs, racing up 20 floors before finding Rachel on a landing, sitting with her head in her hands. Rachel. I crouched beside her. What happened? She looked up, her face ashen. Test Subject 7, Prometheus Interface Trial. He started screaming about seeing beyond the veil, about entities trying to come through. We thought it was just another hallucination, but then... She swallowed hard. His eyes turned black. Completely black. And he started speaking in languages no one recognized. Where is he now? Containment lab on 32. But Jack, that's not the worst part. Her voice dropped to a whisper. The quantum processor, it's communicating with him somehow. Responding to him. And we can't shut it down. What do you mean, you can't shut it down? I mean, we cut the power and it's still running. It's drawing energy from somewhere else. The implications were terrifying. A technology that could operate without conventional power, communicating with a human whose mind had been opened to other realities. I need to see, I said. Rachel grabbed my arm. It's not safe. Kane has ordered the building evacuated, but he's keeping a team with the processor. They think they can control whatever's happening. They can't, I said with absolute certainty. No one can. We made our way to the 32nd floor. The security systems were in disarray, allowing us to slip past checkpoints. Through an observation window, I saw Test Subject 7, a young man named David strapped to a chair, his eyes indeed completely black, his mouth moving rapidly as he spoke in what sounded like dozens of languages layered over each other. Scientists monitored him from behind protective glass, their faces masks of fascination and fear. On a screen beside them, I could see the quantum processor several floors away, its lights pulsing in perfect synchronization with David's speech patterns. They're connected, Rachel whispered. But how? I knew how. The neural interface had opened David's mind just as my near-death experience had opened mine. But while my retuning had been gradual, his was forced, violent, and uncontrolled. And the quantum processor, designed to manipulate reality at its most fundamental level, was serving as an amplifier. We need to get him out of there, I said. Now. Security won't let us near him. Then we need a distraction. As if in response to my words, the building's lights flickered. Screens went blank, then came back online displaying the same message across every monitor. Let him go. The scientists looked around in confusion. Security guards reached for their weapons. Now's our chance, I whispered to Rachel. But as we moved toward the door, Kane appeared with 2 guards. Skywalker, he snarled. I should have known you'd be behind this. Behind what? I just got here. This, sabotage. These messages. He gestured to the screens. What did you do to our systems? Nothing, I said truthfully. But whatever's happening, you need to release that test subject and shut down the processor before. A scream cut me off, not from David this time, but from one of the scientists monitoring him. Through the window, I saw why. David was changing. His skin seemed to ripple, as if something beneath it was trying to get out. The black in his eyes was spreading, veining across his face like cracks in glass. What's happening to him? Kane demanded. Your machine pierced the veil, I said, my voice surprisingly calm. And now something's coming through. Using him as a doorway. Kane stared at me like I was insane, but the fear in his eyes told me he was beginning to believe. The building shook, a tremor that felt like it originated from within rather than without. Alarms blared. Emergency lights activated. Full evacuation, a voice announced over the PA system. This is not a drill. All personnel must exit the building immediately. Kane hesitated only a moment before turning to his guards. Get everyone out. Now. As people rushed for the exits, I moved in the opposite direction, toward David. Jack, no. Rachel called after me. I have to try, I shouted back. I'm the only one who understands what's happening to him. The observation room was empty now, the scientists fled. I approached the inner door cautiously, peering through at David. He was convulsing in his restraints, his body contorting at impossible angles. "David," I called through the intercom. "Can you hear me?" His head snapped toward me, those black eyes fixing on mine. When he spoke, his voice was layered his own, but with something else beneath it, something ancient and cold. "Jack Skywalker," he said. "The man who denied. The man who now sees." "What are you doing to him?" I demanded. "Becoming," the voice replied. "Your kind has opened the door. We have waited so long." "We? Who are you?" A smile spread across David's face, a terrible, inhuman expression. "We are what exists between. What has always existed. What you have forgotten how to perceive." Another tremor shook the building, stronger this time. Cracks appeared in the walls and ceiling. "Let him go," I said. "He's innocent in this." "There are no innocents," the voice replied. "All are connected. All are responsible. You built the bridge, Jack Skywalker. You and your kind, with your arrogance and your technology. Believing you could master forces beyond your comprehension." The truth of those words cut deep. This was my fault, my company, my projects, my blind ambition pushing boundaries that should have remained intact. "Jack." Rachel appeared beside me, breathless. "The building's coming down. We have to go." "I can't leave him," I said, nodding toward David. "You can't save him," she insisted. "Look at him. He's already gone." She was right. Whatever David had been was being consumed by the entity speaking through him. His body was merely a vessel now, and that vessel was changing, becoming something not meant to exist in our reality. As we watched in horror, his restraints began to snap, one by one. "Run," I told Rachel, pushing her toward the exit. "Get as far away as you can." "What about you?" I looked back at the thing that had been David, now rising from the chair, its form shifting and blurring as if reality itself couldn't quite contain it. "I started this," I said quietly. "Maybe I can end it." Rachel hesitated, then did something completely unexpected. She kissed me, hard and desperate. "Don't you dare die again," she whispered against my lips. Then she was gone, running for the stairs. I turned back to face what was coming through the door, what I had helped bring into our world through my denial, my arrogance, my refusal to acknowledge realities beyond the material. The quantum processor had torn a hole in the fabric of existence. The Prometheus project had created human gateways for whatever waited on the other side. And now the bill was coming due. As the creature that had been David broke through the final door, I stood my ground, one man against forces I couldn't comprehend, armed with nothing but a newfound faith I barely understood. "You wanted me to see," I whispered, not to the approaching horror, but to the woman from the road, to whatever she represented. "Well, I'm seeing now. Help me." But no help came. No divine intervention. No miracle. Just darkness, rushing toward me like a tidal wave, and the certainty that everything I had built, everything I had believed, had led to this moment of reckoning. The last thing I remember is being engulfed, not just my body, but my mind, my soul, every atom of my being consumed by something vast and ancient and utterly alien. And then, nothing. Darkness. Endless, absolute darkness. No light, no sound, no sensation of any kind. No body to feel with, no eyes to see with. Just consciousness, floating in a void so complete it defied comprehension. Is this death? I wondered. Is this what I mocked all those years, this eternal nothing? Time had no meaning here. I could have been floating for seconds or centuries, there was no way to tell. Occasionally, I thought I heard voices, distant, distorted, like radio signals from another dimension. Rachel calling my name. Henry praying. My mother singing a lullaby from my childhood. Then, gradually, something changed. The darkness began to texture. I can't explain it better than that. It wasn't becoming light, but it was becoming something more than mere absence. Patterns emerged, complex, fractal geometries that seemed to extend infinitely in all directions. I wasn't seeing them with eyes. I was perceiving them with something else, some sense beyond the physical. "You're beginning to understand," came a voice, the woman from the road. Her presence materialized in this non-space, not as a human figure, but as a concentration of awareness, a focal point in the patterns surrounding me. "Where am I?" I asked, though I had no mouth to speak with. Everywhere and nowhere, she replied. The in-between. The space where realities touch. Am I dead? Not exactly. Your physical form is suspended. But you are very much alive, Jack. More alive than you've ever been. The pattern shifted, revealing glimpses of something else. Realities layered upon realities. Dimensions intersecting like pages in a book. And beings, countless beings of light and energy and forms I couldn't comprehend, moving through it all. What is this place? I asked, or replacing fear. This is what has always existed alongside your reality. What humans have glimpsed throughout their history and called by many names. Heaven. The spirit world. The quantum field. All inadequate terms for something beyond language. And you? What are you? I am a messenger. A guide. One of many who move between worlds. An angel. The word felt strange, coming from the consciousness of a lifelong atheist. If that term helps you understand, yes. Though it carries many misconceptions. The pattern shifted again, and suddenly I could see Earth, not as a planet in space, but as a nexus of energy and consciousness, billions of souls interconnected in a vast, pulsing network. It's beautiful, I whispered. Yes, she agreed. And now it's in danger. The vision changed, focusing on a point of darkness spreading across the network, a tear in the fabric of reality centered on what I somehow knew was my company's building. The entity that came through, I said. What is it? There are spaces between realities where things exist that were never meant to interact with human consciousness. Your technology created a bridge. Now that bridge is widening. Horror filled me as I watched the darkness spread. Can it be stopped? That depends on you, Jack Skywalker. Me? What can I do? I'm not even in my body. You're exactly where you need to be. Her presence intensified. You spent your life denying the spiritual, placing your faith in the material alone. You built technologies to extend human capability without understanding the full implications. Now you must make a choice. What choice? To truly see. To truly believe. To surrender the illusion of control that has defined your existence. The patterns around us shifted again, and I was shown my life, every moment from birth to the present. But not just my actions and words. I saw the ripple effects of every choice I'd made. The people hurt by my ambition. The corners cut in pursuit of progress. The spiritual emptiness I'd filled with wealth and power. I saw myself mocking believers, funding anti-religious campaigns, building a corporate culture that valued efficiency over humanity. And I saw how all of it had led, step by step, to the tearing of the veil, to the darkness now threatening to consume everything. I was wrong, I admitted, the truth of it washing through me. About everything. Not everything, she corrected gently. Your desire to improve human life, to solve problems, to create, these were gifts. But gifts perverted by pride and spiritual blindness. How do I fix this? How do I stop what's happening? The tear was created by technology without wisdom, by science without spirit. It can only be healed by bringing the two together, by someone who understands both worlds. Someone like me, I realized. Someone who has seen both sides. Yes, but it will require sacrifice, Jack. The ultimate surrender of control. Before I could ask what she meant, the pattern shifted once more, and I was shown a vision of what would happen if the tear continued to widen, reality itself unraveling, the boundary between worlds collapsing. Entities never meant to interact with human consciousness pouring through. The end of everything I knew. Everything I loved. What do I need to do? I asked. Return. Face what's coming through. Close the door. How? You'll know. Her presence began to fade. Remember, Jack, you are never alone. You never were. Wait. I called out. I don't understand. But she was gone, and the patterns were shifting again, faster now, collapsing around me like a tunnel. I was moving or being moved back toward something. Light appeared in the distance, blinding after the darkness. Sound returned, chaotic, overwhelming. Sensation flooded back, pain. So much pain. I gasped, air-filling lungs that felt like they'd been empty for eternity. My eyes opened to smoke and rubble and flashing emergency lights. I was back in my body, back in what remained of the Quantum Innovations building. Alarms blared. Sprinklers sprayed water onto collapsed ceiling panels and broken glass. Through the haze, I could make out twisted metal and sparking wires. I pushed myself up, every muscle screaming in protest. How long had I been unconscious? Minutes? Hours? The building was in ruins, but somehow I was alive. Jack. A voice called through the smoke. Rachel appeared, her face streaked with soot and blood, Henry limping beside her. Oh my God, you're alive. She threw her arms around me, and I held her tight, feeling the miracle of physical contact after the void. We thought you were dead, Henry said, his voice breaking. The thing, whatever it was, it consumed you. We saw it happen. How long? I asked, my throat raw. 3 hours, Rachel answered. The building started collapsing, and we had to evacuate. But I couldn't leave without knowing. She trailed off, her eyes filling with tears. Where is it? I asked. The entity. Henry pointed toward what had been the central atrium. Down there. Growing. Changing. The military has the building surrounded, but no one knows what to do. It's like nothing anyone's ever seen. I nodded, a strange calm settling over me. Help me up. I need to get to the quantum processor. Jack, no, Rachel protested. That thing will kill you again. It didn't kill me the first time, I said. It showed me something. And now I know what I have to do. They exchanged worried glances, but helped me to my feet. Together, we made our way through the devastated floor toward the central stairwell. What we saw when we reached the atrium balcony defied description. The entity had grown, consuming several floors of the building. It wasn't solid or liquid or gas, but something else entirely. A writhing mass of darkness shot through with geometries that hurt the eyes to look at, constantly shifting and reforming. And at its center, still visible, was the quantum processor, glowing with an unnatural light, its connection to the entity obvious even to the untrained eye. The processor is the anchor, I said. The doorway. It needs to be shut down. They've tried, Henry said. Cut power, physical destruction, nothing works. It's drawing energy from somewhere else. Not somewhere else, I corrected. The in-between. The space where realities touch. They both looked at me like I'd lost my mind. Maybe I had, but I also understood now in a way I never could have before. I need to get down there, I said. To the processor. That's suicide, Rachel argued. I took her hand. Do you trust me? She hesitated, then nodded slowly. Against all logic and reason, yes. Then help me do this. Both of you. We found a maintenance stairwell that was still intact and began our descent. With each floor, the air grew thicker, harder to breathe. The laws of physics seemed to waver, objects floating, gravity shifting, time itself stretching and compressing. Jack, Henry gasped as we reached the edge of the entity's expansion. I can't, it's too much. I looked at my oldest friend, the believer I'd mocked for years, and saw the fear in his eyes. It's okay, I told him. You've done enough. Both of you have. What are you going to do? Rachel asked. I smiled at her, a real smile, perhaps the first genuine one of my adult life. What I should have done long ago. Surrender. Before they could stop me, I stepped forward, into the field of distorted reality surrounding the entity. Immediately, I felt it trying to consume me again, to break down my physical form and absorb my consciousness. But this time, I didn't fight it. I didn't try to maintain control. I surrendered. I see you, I said to the entity, moving closer to its writhing center. I understand what you are now. The darkness pulsed, tendrils reaching toward me. A voice, the same layered voice that had spoken through David, filled my mind. You cannot comprehend us, it said. You are nothing. Less than nothing. You're right, I admitted, taking another step. I am nothing. But I'm connected to everything. To everyone. To the source you're trying to corrupt. I was at the edge of the quantum processor now. Its lights pulsed in sync with the entity's movements, the tear in reality visible as a shimmering distortion in the air above it. Your world will be consumed, the voice said. The barrier is breaking. We are coming through. No, I said simply. You're not. I placed my hands on the quantum processor. Pain shot through me, unimaginable, searing pain as the energies flowing through the machine entered my body. But with the pain came clarity. I could see the tear now, really see it, a wound in the fabric of reality. And I could see how to close it. Not with technology, not with force, but with the one thing I denied my entire life, faith. I believe, I whispered, the words carrying more power than any technology I'd ever created. I believe in something greater than myself. In connection. In purpose. In love. The entity recoiled as if struck. The tear wavered. I surrender my pride, I continued, each word sending fresh waves of pain through my body as the processor's energy coursed through me. My control. My denial. Images flashed through my mind, my parents, teaching me compassion. Henry, standing by me despite my mockery of his faith. Rachel, seeing value in me beyond my wealth and power. And billions of others, strangers connected in a vast web of consciousness and meaning. I am not alone, I said, louder now. None of us are. We never were. The tear began to close, the edges pulling together like a wound healing. The entity thrashed, its form destabilizing as its connection to our reality weakened. You cannot stop what has begun, the voice insisted, but it sounded weaker now, uncertain. Watch me, I replied. With every ounce of strength I had left, I focused on the tear, not just seeing it, but feeling it, understanding it at a level beyond the physical. The quantum processor beneath my hands grew hotter, the energy flowing through it and into me reaching impossible levels. I was burning from the inside out. My body couldn't contain this much power. But it didn't need to, not for much longer. Jack. Rachel's voice, distant but clear. Let go. You're killing yourself. It's okay, I called back, though I wasn't sure she could hear me through the maelstrom. This is what I meant to do. In that moment, I felt a presence beside me, the woman from the road, her light a stark contrast to the entity's darkness. You understand now, she said, her voice clear despite the chaos. Yes, I replied. It was never about denying or controlling. It was about connecting. About surrendering to something greater. Are you ready? I looked at the tear, nearly closed now. At the entity, its form collapsing as its anchor to our reality failed. At the quantum processor, the machine I'd created to master the universe, now the instrument of my final surrender. I'm ready, I said. She placed her hand over mine on the processor. Light flowed from her, through me, into the machine. The tear sealed with a silent flash that seemed to reverberate through every atom of my being. The entity gave one final, soundless scream as it was pulled back through the closing door, back to the space between realities where it belonged. Then everything went white. I expected darkness again, the void, or perhaps whatever comes after death. Instead, I found myself standing in a field of light, whole and unharmed. Am I dead? I asked the woman standing before me, now appearing as she had on the road that night. That depends on your definition, she replied with a smile. Your physical form is severely damaged. But you are more than your body, Jack. You always were. What happens now? That's your choice. She gestured, and I saw two paths stretching before us, one leading back toward what I somehow knew was my broken body, the other extending into the light. You can return, though healing will be difficult and incomplete. Or you can continue onward. To heaven. I asked, the concept still strange on my tongue. To the next phase of your journey, she corrected. There is much more than you can imagine. I considered both paths. The pull of the light was strong peace, understanding, connection beyond anything I'd known. But when I looked back, I saw Rachel kneeling beside my body, tears streaming down her face as medics worked frantically to revive me. I saw Henry praying, his faith unshaken even in the face of horrors. I saw the world I'd nearly helped destroy, flawed, chaotic, but so very precious. I need to go back, I said. There's still work to do. Amends to make. She nodded, unsurprised. The hardest path is often the right one. Will I remember this? Remember you. Not everything. Not at first. The human mind can only contain so much of the infinite. She touched my forehead gently. But the truth will remain in your heart. And I am never far. One last question, I said. Who are you? Really? She smiled, a smile of infinite compassion and ancient wisdom. I am what you have been seeking without knowing it. What all of you seek through your science and technology and art and love. That's not really an answer, I pointed out. No, she agreed. It's an invitation. To keep seeking. To keep believing. To keep surrendering to the mystery. With that, she was gone, and I was falling back toward pain and limitation and uncertainty. Back toward life. But this time, I was falling with my eyes wide open. Beep, beep, beep. The steady rhythm of hospital monitors pulled me back to consciousness. My eyelids felt like they were weighted with lead, but I forced them open, blinking against the harsh fluorescent light. He's awake. Rachel's voice, thick with emotion. Her face appeared above me, eyes red-rimmed from crying but alight with relief. Jack, can you hear me? I tried to speak, but my throat was raw. A straw touched my lips, déjà vu from my first hospital stay, though this felt different. Deeper. More final, somehow. Don't try to talk, Henry said, appearing on my other side. The doctors say your vocal cords were damaged. Among other things. I glanced down at my body and immediately wished I hadn't. Bandages covered most of my visible skin. My right arm ended in a heavily wrapped stump just below the elbow. Machines surrounded me, tubes and wires connecting to various parts of my broken form. How bad? I managed to rasp. Rachel and Henry exchanged glances. Third-degree burns over 40% of your body, Rachel said quietly. Right arm amputated below the elbow. Severe damage to internal organs from electrical current. Traumatic brain injury. She swallowed hard. They didn't think you'd wake up at all. How long? 2 weeks in a coma, Henry answered. They're calling it a miracle that you survived. Again. Miracle. The word resonated differently now. Not a random statistical anomaly or a quirk of biology, but something more. Something with purpose. Fragments of memory flashed through my mind, the entity, the tear in reality, the woman of light, the choice to return. But they were hazy, dreamlike, slipping away even as I tried to hold on to them. What remained was a bone-deep certainty. I had seen beyond the veil. And I had come back changed. The building? I asked. Gone, Rachel said. Completely destroyed. They're saying it was a catastrophic failure in the experimental power systems. And the thing? Gone too, Henry confirmed. Whatever it was, gas leak hallucination, mass hysteria, or something else entirely, it vanished when the processor exploded. I nodded slightly, understanding their caution. Who would believe the truth? A tear in reality, an entity from beyond, a billionaire atheist's spiritual awakening? I barely believed it myself, and I had lived it. The company? My voice was getting stronger, though each word still hurt. In chaos, Rachel admitted. Kane and the board are facing criminal investigations for negligence and unsafe research practices. The stock has tanked. Most of the executive team has resigned. Good, I whispered. They both looked startled. Good, Henry repeated. Jack, your life's work is imploding. My life's work, I said carefully, was building something that nearly destroyed everything. It needed to implode. A doctor entered then, expressing amazement at my consciousness and coherence. More tests followed, more specialists, more discussions of my miraculous recovery and the long rehabilitation ahead. Through it all, a strange peace settled over me. The physical pain was immense, yes. The road back would be arduous. But for the first time in my life, I felt aligned, connected to something larger than myself. The emptiness that had driven me to build empires and mock believers was gone, replaced by a quiet certainty that defied rational explanation. Days passed. My strength gradually returned, though the doctors made it clear I would never fully recover. The arm was gone for good. The organ damage was permanent. The burns would leave extensive scarring. The old Jack Skywalker would have raged against these limitations, thrown billions at experimental treatments, demanded that science fix what was broken. The new Jack accepted them as part of a journey I was only beginning to understand. One evening, as Rachel sat beside my bed reviewing company documents, she had been named interim CEO in the chaos. I reached for her hand with my remaining one. I need to tell you something, I said. About what really happened. She set the tablet aside. I'm listening. So I told her everything or as much as I could remember. The void, the patterns, the woman of light, the choice to return. With each word, more details surfaced from the fog of my injured brain, the experience crystallizing into something I could almost grasp. When I finished, Rachel was silent for a long moment. Do you think I'm crazy? I finally asked. 6 weeks ago, I would have said yes, she admitted. But I saw that thing. I saw what happened when you touched the processor. I saw the light. She squeezed my hand. I don't know what to believe anymore, Jack. But I believe you experienced something real. It changed me, I said simply. I can see that. Her eyes searched mine. The old Jack Skywalker would be threatening lawsuits from his hospital bed, not accepting his limitations with such grace. The old Jack was running from something he didn't understand, something he was afraid to face. And now? I smiled a real smile, despite the pain it caused my damaged face. Now I'm running toward it. 3 months later, I left the hospital. My physical recovery had plateaued. I would always bear the scars, always need the custom prosthetic arm, always tire more easily than before. But my mind was clearer than it had ever been. The world I returned to had changed in my absence. Quantum Innovations was being dismantled, its assets sold off to pay legal settlements. The Prometheus project had been permanently shut down by government order. The scientific community was still debating what had really happened in that building. Theories ranged from mass hallucination to undiscovered physical phenomena. No one mentioned tears in reality or entities from beyond. No one except the small group who had witnessed it firsthand, and even they were beginning to doubt their memories as time passed. But I remembered. Not everything, not clearly, but enough to know what I needed to do next. My first act as a free man was to call a press conference. Despite Rachel's concerns about my still fragile health, I insisted on facing the world directly. The room fell silent as I walked to the podium, my scarred face and prosthetic arm visible to all. No makeup, no attempt to hide what had happened to me. The assembled reporters, expecting either the arrogant billionaire of old or a broken shell of a man, seemed unsure how to react to the calm, centered person before them. Thank you for coming, I began. I know there are many questions about what happened at Quantum Innovations, about the technologies we were developing, about my own role in what many are calling a catastrophic failure of oversight and ethics. Cameras flashed. Pens hovered over notepads. The truth is both simpler and more complex than the narratives that have emerged. We were pushing boundaries that should not have been pushed, not because innovation is wrong, but because we were innovating without wisdom. Advancing without purpose beyond profit and power. Murmurs spread through the crowd. This was not the Jack Skywalker they knew. I take full responsibility for creating a culture that valued progress at any cost, that mocked caution as weakness and spirituality as superstition. I paused, meeting the eyes of various reporters. I was wrong. The murmurs grew louder. Jack Skywalker admitting he was wrong? Unprecedented. Today, I am announcing the creation of the Threshold Foundation, funded by my personal fortune. Its mission will be twofold. First, to establish ethical guidelines for emerging technologies, particularly those that interact with human consciousness, and second, to explore the intersection of science and spirituality, not as opposing forces, but as complementary paths to understanding our existence. The room erupted with questions. I raised my hand, my real one, for silence. I know this seems like a dramatic shift for those who knew me before. The cynical among you will attribute it to trauma, to brain injury, to a near-death experience triggering religious delusions. I smiled slightly. 6 months ago, I would have been among those cynics. What changed? Called out a reporter from the front row. I considered the question carefully. How to explain the unexplainable? How to convey a transformation that defied rational analysis? I saw beyond the veil, I said simply. And I can never unsee it. The press conference generated exactly the reaction you'd expect, everything from mockery to conspiracy theories to genuine curiosity. Hashtag Jack Lost His Mind trended alongside hashtag Skywalker Redemption. Former colleagues questioned my mental stability. Religious leaders cautiously welcomed my apparent conversion while debating its theological implications. I ignored it all and got to work. The Threshold Foundation took shape quickly, with Rachel as its operational head and Henry as legal counsel. We recruited scientists, philosophers, theologians, and mystics from around the world, people willing to explore the boundaries between the known and unknown with both rigor and humility. 6 months after the press conference, we held our first symposium. The topic: Consciousness Beyond the Brain. Neuroscientists presented alongside near-death experience researchers. Quantum physicists debated with Buddhist monks. The dialogue was sometimes heated, often profound, and always respectful. I opened the event with a simple statement: we are here to ask questions, not to claim answers. To explore possibilities, not to defend certainties. To remember that the greatest scientific discoveries and the deepest spiritual insights share a common origin: wonder. As I spoke those words, I noticed a woman at the back of the auditorium, familiar somehow, though I couldn't place her. When our eyes met, she smiled slightly, then slipped out the door. Later that evening, I found myself drawn to the symposium's rooftop garden. The night was clear, stars visible despite the city lights. I stood at the railing, gazing upward, feeling that strange dual awareness that had become my constant companion, fully present in this reality, while sensing the edges of something more. "Beautiful, isn't it?" came a voice beside me. I turned to find the woman from the auditorium. Up close, there was something about her eyes. "Do I know you?" I asked, though I already knew the answer. "You could say we've met before," she replied. At a crossroads. Recognition flooded through me. Not the woman from the road, not exactly, but something of her essence, her energy, contained in this human form. "You're real," I whispered. "You're actually here. Did you doubt it?" She smiled, that same smile of infinite compassion and ancient wisdom, now on a human face. "Every day," I admitted. "I wake up wondering if it was all a dream, a hallucination, a brain injury playing tricks on me. And yet you've rebuilt your life around it." "Faith isn't certainty," I said. "It's choosing to believe even when doubt is easier." She nodded approvingly. "You've learned much in a short time." "Not enough. There's so much I still don't understand. So much I can't remember clearly." That's as it should be. Some knowledge isn't meant to be held in human consciousness, at least, not all at once. She turned her gaze to the stars. "But you remember what matters. That we're not alone," I said. "That there's more to existence than what we can measure and quantify. That love and connection are the foundation of reality, not just pleasant evolutionary adaptations." "Yes." She placed her hand on mine, warm, solid, real. "And that the veil between worlds is thinner than most imagine." "Is it still dangerous?" I asked. "The tear, could it happen again?" "Reality is always in flux, Jack. Always vulnerable. Your technology accelerated a process that was already underway, the gradual awakening of human consciousness to its true nature." Her expression grew serious. "There will be other tears, other entities seeking entry. Other moments when the balance between worlds is threatened. How do we stop it? Not by denial. Not by fear. But by integration, by bringing together the material and the spiritual, the scientific and the sacred." She gestured toward the symposium below us. "By exactly what you're doing now." A weight I hadn't realized I was carrying lifted from my shoulders. I was on the right path. "Will I see you again?" I asked. "I'm never far," she replied. "None of us are. That's the great truth you glimpsed beyond the veil. Separation is the illusion. Connection is the reality." With that, she turned to leave. "Wait," I called after her. "You never told me your name." She looked back, that timeless smile playing on her lips. "Names are for separation, Jack. But if you need one." She considered for a moment. "Call me Grace." Then she was gone, leaving me alone under the stars, yet not alone at all. The next morning, as the symposium reconvened, I took my place at the podium with renewed purpose. The doubts that had plagued me, that this was all delusion, trauma response, wishful thinking hadn't vanished, but they had been put in perspective. Faith wasn't the absence of doubt. It was the courage to move forward despite it. Yesterday, we began a conversation about consciousness beyond the brain, I said to the assembled thinkers and seekers. Today, I want to expand that conversation to include purpose beyond the self. As I spoke, I noticed Rachel in the front row, watching me with an expression I couldn't quite read. When our eyes met, she smiled, a smile that contained questions and possibilities I was only beginning to understand. And somewhere in the back of the room, though I couldn't see her, I sensed Grace's presence, a reminder that the journey I had begun that night on a rain-slicked road was far from over. It was, in fact, just beginning. 1 year after the symposium, I stood on the balcony of my new home, a modest lakeside cabin far from the Manhattan penthouse I once occupied. The morning mist rose from the water, golden in the early sunlight. Birds called from the surrounding forest. Simple beauty that the old Jack Skywalker would have been too busy to notice, let alone appreciate. My phone buzzed with a text from Rachel. "Car's here. Ready when you are." Today marked the official opening of the Threshold Institute, the physical manifestation of the Foundation's work. A campus dedicated to the integration of science and spirituality, of technology and wisdom. Laboratories alongside meditation spaces. Quantum computers next to prayer rooms. A place where the brightest minds could explore the deepest questions without the pressure of profit margins or publication requirements. I texted back, "On my way." "Nervous?" Her reply came quickly, "Terrified." "Excited?" "Both." I smiled, tucking the phone into my pocket. Our relationship had evolved over the past year, deepening into something neither of us had anticipated. The shared experience of the terror of facing something beyond rational explanation had created a bond that transcended professional partnership. We were still figuring out what that meant, taking it day by day, both of us changed by what we'd witnessed. As I drove to the Institute, I reflected on the journey of the past 18 months. The physical recovery had been grueling, learning to use the prosthetic arm, managing chronic pain, accepting limitations that once would have seemed intolerable. But the spiritual awakening had been even more profound. I hadn't joined any formal religion, though I'd explored many. Instead, I developed what Henry jokingly called practical mysticism, a daily practice of meditation, gratitude, and presence, combined with a voracious study of both scientific and spiritual texts. The billionaire who once mocked faith now began each day in silent contemplation of the mystery at the heart of existence. The irony wasn't lost on me. The Threshold Institute came into view as I rounded the final curve, a striking complex of buildings nestled into the landscape, designed to harmonize with nature rather than dominate it. Solar panels and living roofs. Walls of glass that blurred the boundary between inside and outside. A central courtyard with a labyrinth for walking meditation. Rachel waited at the entrance, elegant in a simple blue dress, her face lighting up as I approached. "Having second thoughts?" she asked, nodding toward the gathering crowd of scientists, journalists, and dignitaries. "About this?" I gestured to the Institute. "Never." "About public speaking with half my face still looking like melted wax?" "Maybe a little." She laughed, taking my hand, my prosthetic one, without hesitation. "They're not here to see your face, Jack. They're here to see what you've built." "What we've built," I corrected. "I couldn't have done any of this without you." Her expression softened. "You know, when you first told me about your experience beyond the veil, I believed you because I trusted you, not because it made sense to me. And now? Now I've seen enough to know that making sense is overrated." She squeezed my hand. "Some truths can only be approached through experience, not logic." "Careful," I teased. "You're starting to sound like me." "God forbid," she replied with a smile. Then, more seriously, are you ready for this? Once those doors open, there's no going back. Your transformation becomes public in a whole new way. I took a deep breath, looking at the Institute, at the physical manifestation of a vision born in darkness and pain and transcendent light. "I'm ready," I said. And I meant it. The opening ceremony was more emotional than I'd anticipated. Standing at the podium, looking out at faces both familiar and new, I found myself overwhelmed by the journey that had brought me here. Henry sat in the front row, beaming with pride. Beside him was Dr. Sarah Ripley, the physician who had called my first survival a medical miracle. She had joined the Institute's research team, determined to explore the intersection of medicine and unexplained phenomena. Several former quantum innovation scientists were present too, including Dr. Leah Corleone, now leading our ethical technology division. And scattered throughout the crowd were others who had been touched by what happened that day, security guards who had seen the impossible, board members who had voted to remove me, even Edward Kane, whose face showed a complex mixture of skepticism and reluctant curiosity. A year and a half ago, I stood before another crowd and said I had seen beyond the veil. Many of you thought I had lost my mind, and honestly, I couldn't blame you. The Jack Skywalker you knew would never have spoken of veils between worlds or realities beyond the material. Murmurs of agreement rippled through the audience. That Jack Skywalker believed in what could be measured, quantified, controlled. He built technologies to extend human capability without considering human wisdom. He accumulated wealth and power to fill an emptiness he couldn't name. I paused, looking down at my prosthetic hand. He was, in many ways, as artificial as this arm, functional but incomplete. The crowd grew still, attentive. What happened in that building, what some call a catastrophic technological failure and others call a spiritual awakening, showed me that our most sophisticated science has barely scratched the surface of reality. That consciousness is not merely a byproduct of brain activity, but something far more profound. That the boundaries we perceive between self and other, between matter and energy, between the physical and the spiritual, are more permeable than we imagine. I gestured to the institute behind me. This place exists to explore those boundaries, not to dissolve them recklessly, as I once did, but to understand them with both scientific rigor and spiritual humility. To recognize that the greatest questions of existence cannot be answered through either approach alone, but through their integration. As I spoke, I noticed a familiar figure at the back of the crowd, Grace, watching with that timeless smile. Our eyes met briefly, and I felt a surge of confirmation that this path, however unlikely, was exactly where I needed to be. The Threshold Institute will not provide easy answers, I continued. We will not offer certainty in place of mystery. What we will offer is a space where the known and unknown can be explored together, where science and spirituality can inform each other, where the material and the transcendent can be recognized as aspects of a greater whole. I looked out at the diverse faces before me, scientists and seekers, skeptics and believers, all united by curiosity about what might lie beyond our current understanding. I invite you to join us in this exploration, not as followers of any particular doctrine or theory, but as fellow travelers on a journey of discovery. The threshold awaits. Let us cross it together. The applause that followed was thunderous, but what moved me most were the expressions I saw: hope, wonder, and a hunger for meaning that transcended intellectual divisions. As the ceremony concluded and guests began touring the facilities, I found a quiet moment alone in the central courtyard. The labyrinth stretched before me, its ancient pattern an invitation to mindful presence. Quite a speech, came a voice behind me. I turned to find Grace, real and solid in the afternoon light. I meant every word I said. I know. She moved to stand beside me, gazing at the labyrinth. That's what gives it power. Will it be enough? I asked. This institute, this work, will it help prevent another tear? That depends on what you mean by prevent. She turned to face me. The veil between worlds has always been thin, Jack. Throughout human history, there have been moments of breakthrough, some beautiful, some terrifying. What your technology did was not create something new, but accelerate and amplify what was already possible. So it will happen again. In different ways, yes. As human consciousness evolves, as technology advances, the boundaries will continue to shift. Her expression grew serious. But what you're building here offers a middle path, neither blind technological advancement nor fearful rejection of progress, but conscious evolution guided by both knowledge and wisdom. I nodded, understanding. Not prevention, but preparation. Exactly. She smiled. You're learning. Slowly, I admitted. There are still days when I wake up and wonder if I imagined everything, if this is all just an elaborate coping mechanism for trauma. Doubt is part of faith, Jack. Always has been. She gestured to the people exploring the institute. But look at what your coping mechanism has created, a space where the deepest questions of existence can be explored with both scientific rigor and spiritual openness. Whether your experience was divine revelation or neurological anomaly, the fruit it has borne is real. Before I could respond, Rachel approached, her eyes curious as she looked at Grace. "Jack, they're asking for you in the quantum lab," she said, then extended her hand to Grace. "I don't believe we've met. I'm Rachel Deckard." "Grace," came the simple reply as they shook hands. "Jack and I are old friends." Rachel's eyes widened slightly as understanding dawned. "You're her," the woman he saw. Grace merely smiled, neither confirming nor denying. "It's an honor to meet you," Rachel said finally. "Whatever you are." "The honor is mine," Grace replied. "You've been an essential part of this journey, the anchor of reason balancing Jack's newfound faith." Rachel looked between us, questions evident in her expression. "I should let you two talk." "Actually," I said, taking her hand, "I'd like you to stay. Whatever Grace has to say, I think we both need to hear it." Grace nodded approvingly. "The integration of different perspectives is exactly what your work is about, isn't it?" The three of us walked to the center of the labyrinth, where a small stone bench offered a place to sit. Around us, the institute hummed with activity, minds engaged, connections forming, boundaries being respectfully explored. "You've created something remarkable here," Grace said. "A bridge between worlds that doesn't tear the fabric of either." "That's the goal," I agreed. "Though we're just beginning." "Every journey begins with a single step," she replied. "But I didn't come just to offer platitudes." "Why did you come?" Rachel asked directly. Grace's expression grew more serious. "To warn you. The entity that came through the tear was not destroyed, merely sent back to its own realm. There are others like it, attracted to the light of human consciousness like moths to a flame." A chill ran through me. "Are they trying to break through again?" "They are always trying," she said simply. "The question is whether they will find another doorway." "Like the quantum processor," Rachel said, understanding immediately. "Similar technologies are being developed around the world," Grace confirmed. "Not with malicious intent, but with the same blindness that characterized your work, Jack. Brilliant minds pushing boundaries without understanding the full implications." "What can we do?" I asked. "Share what you've learned. Not just the scientific data, but the wisdom that came with it. The understanding that technological advancement without spiritual evolution is a path to destruction." She looked at both of us intently. "You've been given a second chance, Jack. Not just to live, but to help humanity navigate a threshold it was always destined to cross." "No pressure," Rachel murmured, but her hand tightened around mine. Grace smiled. "You won't be alone in this work. There are others, some you'll recognize, some you won't, who understand what's at stake. Who see beyond the veil in their own ways." "How will we find them?" I asked. "You already are," she replied, nodding toward the institute. "This place is a beacon for those with eyes to see and ears to hear. Trust that the right people will find their way to you." She stood then, indicating our conversation was nearing its end. "Will we see you again?" Rachel asked. "I'm never far," Grace said, the same words she had spoken to me on the rooftop a year ago. "But my role is changing. The journey ahead is yours to walk." "Any final advice?" I asked, only half joking. She considered for a moment. "Remember that the greatest protection against darkness is not more technology, not more knowledge, but more love. Love is the force that binds realities together, that heals tears in the fabric of existence, that transforms separation into connection." With those words, she embraced us both, a gesture so human and yet somehow transcendent, and then walked away, following the labyrinth's path outward. We watched until she reached the edge, where she turned back once more, raised her hand in farewell, and then seemed to step sideways, out of our reality altogether. "Did she just?" Rachel began. "Yes," I said quietly. "I think she did." We sat in silence for a long moment, processing what had just occurred. Finally, Rachel turned to me. "So," she said with remarkable composure, "we're apparently tasked with helping humanity safely cross the threshold between material and spiritual reality, while preventing interdimensional entities from breaking through and destroying everything." I couldn't help but laugh. When you put it that way. And our primary weapon is love. She raised an eyebrow. Not exactly the strategic advantage I was hoping for. And yet, I said, taking both her hands in mine, flesh and prosthetic, it might be the only advantage that matters. Her expression softened. You really believe that, don't you? I do. I looked around at the institute, at the physical manifestation of a vision born in darkness and pain and transcendent light. Not because it's comfortable or convenient, but because I've experienced it. Beyond the veil, love isn't just an emotion or an evolutionary adaptation. It's the fundamental force that connects all consciousness, all reality. Rachel was quiet for a moment, her scientific mind visibly wrestling with concepts that defied empirical measurement. I can't claim to have seen what you've seen, she said finally. But I've seen enough to know that our conventional understanding of reality is incomplete at best. She squeezed my hands. And if we're going to help humanity cross this threshold safely, I can't think of a better partner for the journey. The word partner hung between us, rich with multiple meanings. I leaned forward and kissed her gently, a gesture that felt both completely natural and utterly miraculous. Partner, I agreed when we parted. In all ways. A call from the main building interrupted the moment, the quantum lab still waiting for its tour. Hand in hand, we walked back toward the institute, toward the future we were helping to shape. As we reached the entrance, I paused for one last look at the labyrinth where Grace had disappeared. The path seemed ordinary now, empty of any supernatural presence. But I knew appearances were deceiving. The veil between worlds was thin and getting thinner. Humanity stood at a threshold between material and spiritual understanding, between isolated consciousness and cosmic connection, between fear and love. The crossing would not be easy. There would be more tears, more entities seeking entry, more moments when the balance between worlds was threatened. But for the first time, I faced that future without fear. The billionaire who had mocked God his entire life had found something beyond mockery, beyond wealth, beyond the limitations of purely material existence. I had found purpose. I had found connection. I had found love. And in the end, that made all the difference. If this journey has touched something in you, if you've ever sensed there might be more to reality than what we can see and measure, I'd love to hear your thoughts in the comments below. And if you haven't already, please subscribe to join our community of seekers and thinkers exploring the threshold between worlds. The veil is thin, my friends, and we cross it together.